as a result of that, I think, you have, students graduating from high school, thinking, hey, I want to try something different. I want to try my own thing, as opposed to the traditional, hey, everybody that, certainly growing up for me. And as I even got a little bit older, it was certainly the mindset, hey, if you didn't go and do your bachelor's degree, you just were a loser. Like, I mean, you just, you weren't going to amount to much. You were going to have a pretty much a dead end road. Things have changed. And I mean, there's, the mindset of, hey, doing my own thing, I think there's just a lot more creativity out there. There's a lot more younger people that are just very, let's say, street smart. And they just, they're just learning younger how to take advantage of technology and things like that. And as a result, you're just seeing a lot of, younger entrepreneurs. I think personally, that's where a lot of it is. I also would say, and I'm sure you're familiar with the Great Resignation. That, by the way, that term was actually coined by one of our professors here at Texas A&M, who coincidentally teaches in our full-time MBA and our professional MBA as well. So it's funny, that's also, I think, potentially another area where you've just got, this mindset of, hey, there's more for me out there than what I'm currently, in. And so there's just, I think there's this whole idea. I mean, this has been a trend for some time, the idea of, hey, I'm not going to be with this organization forever. So, let me kind of, sort of test the markets, sniff around, as they say. And I think that there's just a lot more of that. So people are, rather than going into university, they're looking at other opportunities.
And that is Richard Castleberry talking about how people are viewing university. We were mentioning that there are less people that have been basically enrollment is down. And what a great answer, because you are talking about people that are talking to people that already made that choice. And we appreciate you joining us here today. This is Leadership Line of Sight. My name is Taylor Hack. I'm a serial entrepreneur and the marketing strategist at Gravidia. And I'm here as always with Scott Connors, Chief Change Officer at Crankset Group, helping the leaders that want to make big changes. Basically, you set goals, right? Scott, you set goals and then you guys build the way there?
Well, I think the most important thing to know is direction. Before you can have goals, you have to have a direction. Before you have direction, you have to have vision. Before you have vision, you have to have a team of people to collaborate to help you get there. And that's why it's such a pleasure to have Richard on today, because Texas A&M's MBA program, to me, is changing the industry for the better. Its vision of having synchronicity between large organizations, small organizations, and students interacting towards graduation, that mesh point, as I like to call it, is absolutely the right way for an executive or a regular MBA program to be put together. And so I'm honored to have you on today, sir. I think what you're doing is fantastic. And I can't say enough about the programs. I can't say enough about the success stories that I see on LinkedIn. And I also can't thank you enough for beating Alabama.
I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you on that.
Yeah. We've got, so this is current, and Texas is crushing it.
Yeah, I hope this trend continues, because I got to tell you, we haven't even had our Orange Bowl yet, and I can promise you, I'm very much looking forward to next football season already.
Well, the 12th man is college football. It is Michigan football. It is those great Notre Dame. It's those greatest of traditions in college football, and to see that A&M has had the #1 recruiting class out there in college football speaks to the culture at your institution. So congratulations to the entire institution for an excellent year, and congratulations to you, sir, for an excellent MBA program. I'm a student of learning myself. and watching what you're doing and how you're doing it and bringing in these international students, giving them an opportunity to follow their vision, to determine their mission, and to pick the company as the companies come to pick them and to have choices. I saw an interesting post you put out there about a young man who came in, reinvented himself, and got a full-time opportunity at Tesla. You could just see the smile on his face, right? The pure satisfaction of, I did this. And that's really what you're in the business of, isn't it? It's you're in the business of, I did this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got to tell you that is certainly what drives me. There's no question about it as far as, just the success of our students. That's what it all boils down to. So it's a total team effort. A story like the one, I mentioned about, the student, the MBA who just graduated yesterday. Making that pivot from oil and gas to big tech is not an easy pivot, and it takes, a big time effort, on the coaching side, preparing someone for those kinds of interviews, how to tell your story to employers, really critical. So our career management center, does a fantastic job of that. And of course it takes a lot of hustle, and in this particular case by the MBA himself, as far as, just networking. I can't stress the importance of that enough. And that was something that he clearly did a great job, made the right connections, had people, inside the company in his corner. And I got to tell you, man, there's no substitute for networking, full stop. That is the number one, thing.
A lot of people even they look past the fact that you can build relationships as an alternative to negotiation, or a mastery of negotiation. The way that you relate to people before you ever sit down to make a deal changes everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. And certainly, relationships. I mean, if there was one word to describe, anything and everything, it's all about relationships. I mean, you can, and we have, and I'm sure, many of the top business schools have students from a technical skill perspective, they're so solid. Even sometimes, even with the soft skills, as far as being able to get up in front of a major client and present and things along those lines. But when you've got also, the relationships, and you've got just those people in your corner based on, all those conversations you've had, and it has to be genuine. It has to be, reciprocal. It's got to be, you have to genuinely want to be helping them as well. When that is all in place, it's kind of like in a good way, it's like that perfect storm, right? Everything comes together, and magic can truly happen when all of those things are working together. And yeah, that's what it's all about, relationships.
Yeah, and you're right. I also think it's about brand building, and what each individual needs to understand is that they are their own brand. And you can say, hi, my name's Bob Smith, and it's really nice to interview with you. Or you can say, hi, I'm Bob Smith, MBA candidate at Texas A&M University. And that's brand identity, and that's brand equity. It's automatic. But beyond that, beyond the succession of jobs and getting into career, there's also the learning part. There's also finding your passion. And that's what a good business school does. It'll give you the core competencies, but you'll be able to find your passion. I'm passionate about leading people. Somebody else is passionate about pro forma financial statements. Somebody else is passionate about leading a CTO, a technical organization. But we can lean into our passions and learn about our passions. And that's where an MBA is so critical. People say, I don't need an MBA. Even Google says we don't even need a college degree. I disagree. I've never been more of a proponent than I am right now of higher learning, because the learning that we're getting outside of institutional classrooms, whether virtual or in person, is segmented and it's biased. And it leads you down a journey that you're not really sure if you're learning what's right and what's applicable in the market today. And one of the things that we know, Richard, I'd like your opinion on this, innovation today, if you have a new student coming in today technology and innovation, organizational structure, culture, capital markets, marketing, branding. It's going to be different when you graduate at a far faster acceleration than we've seen in history. So you guys are keeping up with that curve. How are some of the ways that your program keeps up with those innovation changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. I think first of all, obviously making sure you've got the right faculty in place. So from a curriculum standpoint and from a, a theoretical standpoint, you've got the right faculty in place. So, world-class faculty that are, always up on what's happening. What do the students need to know now, not, 10 years ago or 5 years ago? What, do our students need to know now? I think also, so faculty, and also from a program standpoint, it's also all those not those I like to call it co-curricular activities that you can do too. And the only way in which you can, be, let's say, aware of what's important for, your students to know is also by a lot of discussion with employers. You've got to be talking with employers all the time. What are the skill sets that they're looking for from your students? So I'll give you some quick examples. So right now, our students, they've got to be up to speed on Tableau, Power BI, being able to make sure, again, right, when they do eventually get out into the back into the workforce, or even on their MBA internship, they better be able to present data in a storytelling way, because at the end of that internship, they're going to be expected to deliver a quality presentation of what they've done over the summer a lot of times in front of executives, executive board, things along those lines. So it's a lot of discussion back and forth with employers, seeing what's needed out there as far as skill sets. And as I told you, I think, again, making sure you've got the right faculty in place, that they're engaging, that, and keep in mind too, right? And if you're talking about an MBA program, who's in the classroom with them? So making sure from the beginning, you're doing your best job to make sure that you're recruiting a top-notch class that's complementary, that those students are bringing in experiences and so forth that all of the students are going to learn from. So I think that's really critical.
So, in summary, it's collaborative, interactive, time sensitive, real time learning.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the unique things you mentioned earlier about our culture. One of the things it's pervasive here at A&M. We look for students that truly represent the Aggie core values: respect, excellence, leadership, loyalty, integrity, and selfless service. That's what we look for. And I got to tell you, collaborative, that is a great way to describe the culture. Of course, we want our students to be competitive, but competitive with people outside of our program. Within the program, it is incredibly collaborative. Everyone is genuinely excited when, their colleagues are scoring a great internship somewhere or do real well on their exams, things like that. I mean, it's a really collaborative culture here.
Yeah, that's great. When an Aggie wins, we all win. I
Yeah,
love that. I
for
love that.
sure.
Yeah. One of the things for me that I'd like to ask you about that I'm finding in my work, and we have teams of advisors worldwide. We're engaged in companies worldwide. One of the pervasive qualities that's missing at the upper level of organizations, and there's a consensus on that, it's not just me and my own bias, is critical thinking. The ability to actually think critically and make decisions, execute on those decisions, or inspire others to do so. How important is critical thinking to an MBA student to be prepared to go in the real world from your perspective?
Yeah, and incredibly. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because so of course, as you would expect at a quality, business school, we do a lot of assessment, for formal assessment of our students. In particular, just within I think, what was it, October, November, we did again the Peregrine and CLA Plus formal assessments, and they specifically assess on critical thinking, problem solving, exactly those really important skills. So, what we tend to do is we tend to, after all of that is, obviously evaluated, we get the results back. We look at where can we improve in those areas. So conversations with faculty, hey, where do we need to be? What are some of the things that we seem to be, not doing as well as others, and then try our best as possible to get some of that into the curriculum. And where we can't get it into the curriculum, then again, we look at areas of, perhaps co-curricular stuff that we can do outside of the curriculum to try to get some of that, with our basically into, to our students. It's tricky. Critical thinking and problem solving are not just, hey, let's insert, a workshop on, but in general, that is something that we are regularly aware of, and it's something that we also find, incredibly valuable for our students to get as they go out.
What I keep hearing is at every level, it seems like the game plan, the play that's being run is who over how. So you're talking about the network around Texas A&M of the business leaders and employers and keeping in contact with them. You're talking about the network within your university because you guys have distilled it to the point where you're exchanging with people that you want to be the average of, right?
Yeah, I mean, so, it all begins there, but ultimately it's, it's as you said, Scott, it's just making sure that all those things that we find to be of great value for our students, we want, nothing but great results in the end. And so getting back to your who versus how and so forth, how it gets done, well, we just need to figure out the right ways to make it happen. That's really the bottom line. And lots of people can come with all sorts of obstacles. It's finding solutions to those obstacles. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but that's truly what it's about. It's about never being satisfied with the status quo. And I can tell you, this graduate programs office here, it's pervasive throughout the entire office. It's always looking for ways in which we can improve. Full stop. So one of the biggest challenges, though, is knowing what you don't know, and hey, what is it that we need to be getting, in a sense, to our students, and then you can. It's a lot easier once you know that, figuring out how to make it happen.
Yeah, and going out to the corporate community and saying, what do you need? What are you looking for? Where does this organization need the most help? And training and educating with selfless service. Sounds like you're a great example of leadership at A&M. Good for you. Tell me a little bit about your team. You said pervasive across the whole department. I'm sure you want to give them some credit. How does your team work? How do they operate?
Oh yeah, I mean, nothing could be done, without everyone. So it's, we have a variety of individuals that are so influential in the success of our students. And I'm talking about from the moment they, let's say, inquire about the program. We've got an incredible recruiting and admissions, pair that really, make sure that everyone that's applying to the program feel important. They are far from just a number. We're reaching out. We are personally talking with all of them. What information can we get to them, to make their decision, easier. And just, hearing them out and so forth, to, a fantastic, financial aid and, and scholarship woman that can tell everyone, what they can expect from the perspective of, their bill and how that all is taken care of and things along those lines. Then our specific within the MBA programs office, we've got just a phenomenal associate director and program coordinator. They deal with a lot of the day-to-day logistics and, just, helping, in a sense, all of us as a team, like, what do our faculty need? I'll tell you, during COVID, when everything went to hybrid, it was really a challenge to just shift everything virtually almost overnight, and to make sure that our faculty felt as comfortable as they could, trying to deliver, world-class business education, both in person and virtually. I got to tell you, a lot of faculty initially, right? And I think this would probably be the case if you talk to any person leading either an MBA program or really any program for that matter, would have preferred to either be completely on Zoom or completely in person. It is a whole other animal when you're trying to deliver something super quality across both mediums, worried about, hey, what's going on in the Zoom chat and all these different things. It's a real, so, it's the whole effort that would be on the academic side. Again, our career management center is just world class from the perspective of and I'm not joking when I say, so our program starts in July. From like about maybe April or May, our career management center is already well engaged with all of our incoming students on, hey, you need to get this prepared. You need to have this done. You need to have all these different things done so that when they hit the ground here in July, I mean, they are ready to like rock and roll on their MBA internship search, as well as all of the academics, because as you probably know, things do not slow down once they get here. It's the opposite,
Yeah.
so everybody needs to be, with the same goal in mind, which is just prepare, get everybody ready to go. And then obviously, God willing, the positive results come as a result.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time. One of my core values that I bring to all of my clients is the separation is in the preparation. So be prepared, and the more you can't over prepare. Period.
You really can't. You really can't. And I got to tell you, one of the other great, honestly, learnings that I've had over the course of my almost to the day 3 years now here, has been the importance of reinforcement throughout the program. So you set expectations, but I got to tell you, that's not enough. You need to be, so if you're telling people, all the important things that you think they need to know to be successful in the program during your orientation, that's all good. But boy, you better be reinforcing it throughout the program, because I assure you, they will need that reminder. They will need to have that front of mind at all times. In particular, when we're talking about trying to balance the academics and the job search, incredibly important. And again, it's that constant reinforcement.
Yeah,
Easy to forget.
One of the things I wanted to say to your staff, to everybody that's an educator and in the educational system, is we've given a lot of credit to our first responders. We've given a lot of credit to our healthcare professionals, and they deserve it. But we need to give that same level of credit to our educators worldwide who hung in there and buckled down and really said, okay, I can meet these challenges. It's not fun. It's not easy. And I'm underpaid, but I'm going to do what I love to do, and I'm going to keep educating. And they are up there on that same pedestal as our first responders in my mind, and our healthcare professionals. So from at least from me, please thank them from the bottom of my heart for just keep going, because you're right. In classroom, hybrid, back in classroom, back hybrid, half and half. What are we doing? What's the right thing to do? Should I go to class? Should I stay home? All of it. All of it changed the landscape.
So that doing video and and it's almost like Broadway and film at the same time. Nobody wants to see a movie about of a Broadway show. It just doesn't translate, right? And vice versa. You got to be there, and then it's more than an experience. I run a real estate team where the average person here has sent probably about 2,000 videos directly to clients. So we are one of the most foremost embracing video. I believe that that's going to be something that people doing well is a leadership tool. What do you think on that as the world curves through COVID and does more of this half and half stuff?
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, to Scott's comment, I could not agree with you more, Scott, on that. I mean, what teachers did to pivot. And then, one thing you didn't mention, which has got to be mentioned, is also just the fact that, they were truly in harm's way, right? And I'm not talking about even at the higher education. I'm talking about K through 12. I've got 3 children, two already, that are well into school. And I got to tell you what they, did to, be as comfortable as they can, feel, our children, keep them as safe as possible, all of that. I mean, that is truly remarkable. And let's be honest, they also, from a remuneration, they're not exactly, getting paid, a great sum of money either for that risk and so forth. So truly incredible.
Yeah.
Getting back to what you were talking about video. Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, the way in which I would put it, Taylor, is I would put it like, I think what you're going to find is you're going to find more and more programs looking to see how they can become more flexible. I think that's the best way to put it. I don't think you're going to find this huge jump to, more and more strictly online programs. There's already obviously a whole host of them, and they've become quite popular, and that's fine. That's good for ones that makes sense. But I believe that you're always going to have so many students that want to have that in-person experience, that are going to want to have that. So there's always going to be, I believe, truly probably a larger population of that. Just it's a different experience when you're in person. We all know that. But I do believe if you can make it flexible, where you may have individuals that can't be there all the time, or they've got the ability, if they can't make it to a class or can't make it on a given day, that they can tune in either via Zoom or via some asynchronous version. I do think it's probably going to trend that way.
So you were talking a lot about this being experiential, and one of the things that you're trying to do is to accomplish experiences for your students that will reveal the leaders that they really are. Can you take us through what you feel as though someone would have to experience? Is there any, marks you all have to hit?
So what I would tell you is this. I can use our example here. I mean, our second year MBAs that just finished yesterday, literally yesterday. The hooding ceremony was yesterday. The official A&M graduation ceremony is today. The bigger university one is today, that I'll be at this afternoon. I got to tell you what those students went through. They are truly the COVID class, right? Yep, there you go. And what they went through, so they did their, almost all of them did their internship this summer virtually. And when they came back, of course, they wanted things in person, because it was so difficult, just like, and A&M is not alone in this, right? I mean, in fact, there are probably even, other universities that had even stricter guidelines, right? But just based on, of course, where they were in the country. But I got to tell you, the fact that, most big events could not be in person, they had to be, in small groups, things like that. Our MBAs came back and they were really itching for things, in person, so that they could have as best of an in-person experience and MBA experience as possible. I don't believe we're alone in that. I think that goes across, not just MBA programs, but programs across the country, undergraduate and the like. And so what I would tell you is I would say it goes back to the relationships, the ability to actually network, the ability to actually, get to really know somebody in different ways. You have those in-person experiences, I think both personal, where you can, meet up to just study together, to the bigger events where you can celebrate things together. I think a lot of it is about that. And that's really, kind of a big part of why you even do a program like this. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just do it, virtually and online? I hope that answered your question.
You betcha.
Yeah. To hear a director of an institution of higher learning, a well-respected, well-regarded, historical, right, institution of higher learning director say flexible is beautiful. I mean, that's just a beautiful thing to hear. The fact that students want the in-person connectivity, the fact that people in the Great Resignation have decided to retool themselves, reinvent themselves, choose different paths and patterns. I know that you guys coined the Great Resignation as a term.
We didn't, but one of my professors did.
Right. One of my terms I'm trying to coin right now is the Great Reinvention. The pandemic has given us all an opportunity to take a fresh look at everything.
Oh, yeah.
And problems are opportunities in my world. And
Agreed.
You guys have done a great job of turning this problem into an opportunity. And the picture that we just showed there shows all smiles, not just because I'm graduating, but because I had fun doing it, and because I'm poised and I'm ready and I'm prepared to go into my new chapters. So very fulfilling, right? Very rewarding for you. How does it feel to you when you see that picture up there on the screen?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head. And I got to tell you, this is, again, it goes back to really the entire team. We just care so much about our students that the last thing we would want would be for them to graduate, now and be disgruntled, feel like they didn't get a quality experience. And I got to tell you, when we started getting the feedback over the summer, about just, how they, they saw what the first years were getting, because obviously the first years came at a different time, right? And they started to be able to, so they came right in the summer when all of the second years were on their internship. So the first years in July, things looked a lot different. And our second years hadn't come back yet. So they started seeing all these fantastic things that the first years were getting that they didn't get because they were the year before during the heart of COVID. And so for us, we really had to look at, how can we change their perception of their experience? What can we do as a team to make it, a memorable, and for them to go away and say, wow, hey, it was challenging, and it didn't, it didn't start off the way we had anticipated, but boy, did we go out with a bang. And I got to tell you, it took a full team effort. It took so much support from our associate dean, that they supported what we were doing. And we always we've been so blessed to get, complete support on that. And we've been able to really, I think, deliver, a really great experience for them, at least in the last 6 months, as best we can, to make it, as best as possible. And certainly, of course, even during, their first year, we certainly tried to make it as best as possible given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Can I just say one quick thing about your great reinvention? So 2 things about that real quick. If we look at the reinvention, what we obviously saw when everything, was going towards, hey, this whole COVID thing, and employers were reluctant to hire people. Graduates were graduating and having their employment reneged, right? You probably heard a lot about this back in May 2020. Well, what you would expect is a lot of them said, oh, hey, this is, not great timing for jobs, but guess what? This might be a great time to go and get, right, an MBA, or in my other program's case, the MS business degree, and so forth. So of course, as you would expect, we saw a spike. I got to tell you, that tends to still be the case. We still see very, very good applications in our programs, which is awesome. And even the quality is just unbelievable. But what I was going to tell you is, so from that perspective, spot on, I think, Scott, a real true great reinvention that people have tried to do of themselves to make themselves more marketable and so forth. And what I think actually is going to also potentially come as a result from this great resignation is if employers want to, do what they can to retain good people so that they don't start looking at other opportunities. They're going to have to get super creative, and come up with. I'll quote one of my good employer. Like he's one of the leading. He's like a training and development person who's responsible for these kinds of programs. Their employers in general are going to have to come up with a buffet of options for their hypos and their top, people that they want to keep. And what I think you may see, I hope, is more employers, top employers, really investing in training and development. Uh, you know, thinking about, hey, maybe we should sponsor this high potential for an executive MBA, for a professional MBA, where they can continue to work full time for them, but get that, for personal development and do those kinds of things to retain good people. I think you're probably going to see more of those kinds of things happening at companies because they don't want to be losing good people as a result of the Great Resignation. I think you're going to start seeing that trend.
Yeah, what we're doing now as large enterprises, what we're doing is, first of all, we've recognized this fact. We need to be hiring now. And we need to be hiring not because we're growing or scaling. We need to be hiring to keep the people that are here from being overworked, burned out, and going somewhere else. This is not about scaling for revenue's sake and for earnings sake right now. This is the period of time where we need to invest in our people first and foremost by bringing other people around them to help them with their jobs. That's
Wow.
number one.
That's yet another, right, kind of, let's say, a result of this whole Great Resignation. Yeah. Interesting.
And number two, we need to tell every one of our HPs, our high performing people, those potentials, we need to say, you're going to go do something else. What is it you want to do? Well, I don't want to go somewhere else. Yes, you do. You will. Well, I might want to switch from, say, marketing to finance. Let's get you the education you need to get you there. What do you want? How are you doing? What do you need? And how can we help you get there? Every single stakeholder / employee, whatever you choose to call them, across your ecosystem right now. How are you? What do you need? And how do we help you get there? So an MBA student today going into the marketplace, to me, is different than, as you mentioned in the beginning of the show, where you and I, in our generation, we either got a degree or we went and worked flipping burgers. It was just, that's the way it was. Today, higher learning is not an entryway in or a gateway to. Higher learning is a necessary commodity that all of us need to bring to the table at some point in our careers. At some point, we need to continue our education. Whatever that passion is, we need to continue in that education. The innovation alone will leave us behind.
I like that idea, though, Scott, of getting ahead, right? Getting ahead of those good employees leaving because they don't feel valued. As you said, it could be due to burnout, could be due to other things, or they just want to, become better at their jobs. At maybe they have, obviously I'm sure in most cases, right, they've got higher, aspirations and so forth, and getting ahead of that. I like that.
Yeah. I want to shift gears with you for a few minutes here, if you don't mind. A cohort of mine, Scott Galloway, who teaches over at NYU marketing, and he's quite an outspoken gentleman. I think, and I don't know if I'll get this right, but the 90% of MBA students come from the top 10% of income families in the world, or something of that nature. This disparity of wealth that we're experiencing in most cultures right now, where the have and the have-nots, the middle class going away. An MBA is a lot more affordable. It's an investment. It has a return on investment, and everybody kind of knows that, I think. But to most of the people that are listening today, and to those that will listen to the replay or that will read about or aspire to get an MBA, right? To most of them, their first thought is, it's too expensive. I can't afford it. I'll never get accepted. I don't have a network, to your point of it being everything. I don't have the type of relationships to make a letter of recommendation for me. I'm a have-not. That's how most people, when they're thinking about an MBA, are going to see themselves. It's just a fact. And they're wrong. And I know they're wrong, but I'd like to hear from you why they're wrong.
Sure. Well, I got to tell you, you really teed this one up for me, because I mean, that is certainly one of our value propositions is our ROI. Our return on investment is just second to none. I mean, it's constantly up there among the top, business schools in the entire world. If you look at Financial Times rankings and things like that, our value for money, our return on investment. So, a couple things, if we look at just our program in general, from that perspective, it's an 18-month program too. So the opportunity cost is shorter as well. But how much, the overall fee is to come to the Mays Business School, full-time MBA program, and, you know, versus, let's say your starting salary at what the average starting salary is coming into the program and what it is when you leave the program. I mean, it's off the charts, how we rank in that particular perspective. And especially when you start, bringing in the intangible of, what's the perception, what's the reputation of the institution. So, that's, I think, and believe me when I say, again, whether someone, likes the whole idea of rankings or not, it drives, individuals' decisions why to come to a particular program. So we have to be cognizant of those things, like employability of our incoming students, and what kind of salary are they going to get when they're done. So could you hypothetically have 100% employment at the end? Sure, you could, but at the same time, those jobs that the students are getting, they better be MBA level jobs paying an MBA level salary. Otherwise, it doesn't matter that you're at 100%, your rankings are still going to suffer as a result. So those are some things that we really always have to be cognizant of when we're admitting students into the program. It's not just, oh, they've got a great GPA or they've got a great GMAT or a GRE. It's very much also, do we think we can help them get a job? So it's a combination of those things. But what I would tell you is I would say absolutely not the case what you brought up with our program, which I'm very fortunate in that respect. We are bringing in students of all different types, from the perspective of where they're at on, let's say, how prosperous they are when they come in versus when they others than where they're at. And so what I would tell you is I would say, certainly some things that they should look for in a program would be, certainly the ROI. There are schools, as you well know, that are going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars before they're done, with the program. So you got to look at that, if, and how much is it going to, set them back? And then, what can they expect to, at the end of it all, right? And so forth. So that's, I love that perspective. But also, again, too, it's other things like, again, the reputation. Also, are they going to get, what else are they going to get in addition to those things? So again, one of the things that I believe really truly separates our program too is the personal leadership, development, the individual leadership development that we do within the program. So we truly want our students to truly transform as individuals. So we do a lot of personality assessments, things like that. Make sure that our students really have a high self-awareness, and hopefully grow while they're in the program to become better leaders. And what's funny, I will tell you, so again, I've almost been in this role now 3 years to the day. We do it as well. So Berkman and things like that, we do those assessments. We know what our strengths are. And I'll tell you, if I look at my own personal relationships here and in the business school, in particular within my, within the direct team that I work with, I'm more cognizant of when, for example, my stress levels go up, how I'm behaving, how I'm acting towards, individuals that I'm working with, and vice versa. It also I become much more aware of, oh, I see their stress levels rising. So what the reason I'm getting so in detail about this is because our students, as a result of that, and myself, for example, we can become better leaders. We can understand how to manage, how to work with people, how to work in teams better as a result, if we're aware of that and we know what makes a person tick or what makes a person ticked off. So that's really, truly valuable stuff that you don't necessarily get in every program. And I think it's one of those things, again, that kind of differentiates us. And if a student is looking for, an MBA, or why should a person do an MBA, it's a lot of those things as well, not just, hey, this is going to get me a great job.
Is it would I be right in saying this? I want an MBA. I don't think I can afford it. I should apply anyway.
I think so, because I got to tell you, again, it's one of those funny things. You don't know what you don't know. Right. So I got to tell you, this is why I've always been like never in favor of, putting a big price tag, for example, on a website. Not that we have a high price tag at A&M, but I'm saying in general, like for schools that do that, if you're going to, scholarship it down, significantly, it doesn't make any sense to put a big price tag. Is it just for the sake of saying, hey, we're a high price school, we're this, institution? And because ultimately that really plays into, students' decisions on where to go. So what I would tell you is, I mean, certainly the way in which I look at it, of course, we're an institution. Of course, you need to make money, right? I mean, that's, in order to pay the faculty, in order to do all these different things, of course, you need income coming in. But from the perspective of the student, it's a serious concern. How much are they going to be paying? And again, keeping in mind, in particular with the full-time MBA, these students are not able to work while they're in the program. It's just not feasible. So it's that opportunity cost as well. So what I'm always telling, because I get very involved on the admission side now with both programs. So I'm talking to a lot of students with these kinds of concerns. I'm telling them, hey, we are going to make this as at least financially feasible as we can, and, you need to be aware that, hey, there are scholarship opportunities and there's ways in which you can somehow, bring down the overall cost. Or let's talk about creative ways in which you can maybe, make, some money on the side in some sort of like assistantship or different things to get creative. But ultimately with the whole, with the idea that, we try to make it as manageable as possible for the students so that they can afford to come.
I love how you're talking about return on education. How many families should be sitting down and having this discussion to say, hey, listen, as part of our investigation, let's talk to the university and see what kind of help is available. Let's see what the end cost is going to be. And then let's fast forward into the future 5 years and say, this is where they can take you.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, a lot of that, again, without having, and that's the reason why I get so like personally involved in having these phone calls. A lot of times it's, 5-10 minute Zooms, but I'll tell you, so impactful when you can have that personal call with somebody and you can, make them feel, like they're being listened to, that they're important. But I got to tell you, again, it's that whole idea of you don't know what you don't know. So that's why, getting back to what you asked, Scott, asking that question, or, making sure that they know, hey, this may be within their reach. And this is why they should take that leap of faith and, and kind of bite the bullet now, as opposed to waiting 2 years. I get a lot of that, right? Maybe this is not the right time. Well, if you have that attitude now, it's likely in a year, you might have that, you might be feeling that same way. It's that whole, there's never a good time, right? Family and all these different things, so you have to, obviously you do want it to be ideally a good time in a person's life to obviously embark on this, but it's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take compromise no matter when you do it. So it's something to think about.
I would argue that improving your net worth, improving your asset quality as an individual and what you can bring to an organization becoming an entrepreneur through the MBA process to understand the mechanics of actually running a business versus just starting one, I would argue that there has never been a better time than we're
Yeah,
in
I mean,
right
I
now.
I think those skills are incredibly important, and that's probably why too you're starting to see more and more like from the perspective of rankings. You know, different ranking surveys are asking how much entrepreneurship do you have in the program, things along those lines. I can tell you, it is definitely one of the things that you know, if you were to ask me what keeps you up at night, it's things like that, making sure we get more entrepreneurship in the program, no matter how we do it. More diversity in the program. Again, there's lots of different ways in which you can try to do that. That's important. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, I'll give you a quick thing. So again, full-time MBA, MS Business. MS Business program, 11-month program meant for non-business undergraduate majors. They come straight into the MS Business program and get that, you know, that comprehensive business you know, degree. Although, again, obviously, it's not going to be as deep of a dive as a full-time MBA, of course. However, 4 months of that program is the integrated business experience. And that's where the student teams actually start a business and run a company for 4 months. And I'm telling you, it's everything from make the pitch to the bank, secure your loan, actually working with a manufacturer to produce your physical product, getting the product to College Station, and then based on all your market research, your financial analysis, determining how are you going to sell this product to the customer. So, you know, going back to what you said, think about this. How cool would it be as an MS Business graduate, for example, right? How cool would it be to have an important interview with an employer and being able to tell that story, right? I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Interviews, being able to tell good stories, right?
That's right.
And obviously impactful ones. Well, that's a pretty impactful story, being able to tell how you and your team, you know, built the company and what you learned along the way. That's powerful.
And that to me makes Texas A&M's MBA program the best in the nation. And that's a personal opinion, but I stand behind it. And I've never been to Texas A&M University, but I know that what you're doing in that immersive learning environment is exactly what companies are looking for. That critical thinking, that source to see, that's the kind of learning they want their people to come, because they got to hit the ground running. They got to be able to make decisions. And they've already done that and had that experience when they leave the MS program. Congratulations for designing a curriculum that employers actually look at and go, yeah, I want those people.
Well,
Well done.
I certainly won't take credit for designing that, but certainly, you know, as a team, we certainly are always looking again at ways in which we can improve that experience. And I do think from that perspective, it's, you know, again, it's always looking at what you can do better. I think that's really, really super important.
Yep.
So as we move into our closing, I wanted to ask about the next few steps. So if we're designing the leaders of the future, it sounds to me like this combination of network and having these HR strengths, getting to know the people around you, like even when you were mentioning the MS Business program, you would get to know enough that you would be able to understand the smarter people in the room, right? And what do you think about those leaders of tomorrow? What do you think that they're going to have that the leaders 10 years ago didn't have at the most important scale?
So certainly, again, you know, technology again just continues to, you know, evolve so rapidly. You know, I know that, you know, certainly 10 years ago, leaders absolutely needed to be able to adapt quick to, but I got to tell you that I think it's just it's growing in importance. Being able to, like, you know, whatever, you know, are the new skills, it's gonna become more important to be able to, you know, to adapt to those things. If we think about, you know, everybody, you know, I'm sure there's still a lot of people out there that are worried that AI is going to take over the world. Well, again, it's, you know, it's understanding things like AI, right? It's understanding and seeing where you, based on your skill set, where you fit in, and knowing that, you know, that skill set is going to need to evolve over time. Earlier, Scott mentioned, hey, you know, at some point regardless, you're going to need higher education. And I mean, there's many other ways outside of just higher education that, individuals can get that learning that they need. But I think certainly, if I was to maybe put it in a nutshell, it is going to be that individual's ability to just adapt as fast as possible, and to be able to actually do their best to see trends, to really see where things are heading so that they can get ahead of that curve too. I think if they're going to be the leaders, that's what they're going to need to be able to do.
That's fantastic. And I really think that the next generation seems to be preparing through understanding computers happens in rapid iterations in video games. And if you can respect the limitations of the systems around you, the way you can fill the gap with people means that you're going to intersect the most valuable point for consumers, which is the intersection of awesome and now. If you use those computers to be now and you keep the people being awesome, I feel like it's a winning play for tomorrow.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it to me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And we really think that anyone who's inspired should definitely check this out. I think Scott had such a meaningful point when he was saying that even if you don't think this is available to you, go and find out. It's so important. Now, you can connect with Richard on LinkedIn. That's one of the places where we definitely find you. And if you consider social media like your credit history, look at the evidence of great relationships on Richard's timeline. As you go down there, you can see exactly what he's talking about, pictures with him and students, and it is like a hall of fame of all these people that are going great places. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Richard is the director of Full-Time MBA and MS Business Programs at Texas A&M University.
Yeah, it was great, guys. Thanks so much for allowing me to chat with you. It's been real fun. Yeah, just, it's a total team effort. Total team effort.
Well, thank you so much. My name is Taylor, and I'm always joined by Scott Connors, Chief Change Officer of Crankset Group. And I am the Marketing Strategist at Gravidia. Thank you so much. And thanks again, Richard. I hope you have a remarkable weekend.
Take care, guys. Gig 'em. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.